Hello everyone, I'm Sylvia from Fairlighttarot Tarot. Welcome to my channel and welcome to the 4th episode of Tarot and Oracle Pairings. Today we're going to do something different. So this episode is going to be both the 4th episode of my Tarot and Oracle Pairings in my channel, but it's also going to be a VR to Don Michel Tarot playing with pairs. The Oracle deck that I've chosen for this VR is the Soul Trees Ascension deck, and it's by Alison Williams Yee. It's such an amazing deck. I was fortunate enough to get one of the last ones of this Oracle decks. I believe that if you go into the creator's website, there might be still a couple of copies of this deck with imperfect edges. Just paying a visit to her website, which I will link in the description box below. It is so incredibly beautiful. I'm just going to give you a quick flip through of this deck while I'm going to explain to you why today we're going to have a VR as opposed to my usual episode of just, sharing with you my choices for tarot and oracle pairings. Now, in my last video, I was talking about VR performance anxiety, and I received a lot of feedback from the tarot community. Now, what I meant with VR performance anxiety, as I explained it, is the fact that whenever you're a new YouTuber, like in my case, you're kind of hesitant to show your content to the general public. And why is that? Because there's so many examples of tarot YouTuber with a lot of subscribers, a lot of experience, years and years of experience in sharing videos. And their videos are obviously a result of those 3, 4, 5, 10 years of experience. Therefore, obviously you can see that in the way they use the content, in the way they process their videos, the way, for example, in which they describe their decks. They obviously master what they're doing, and it comes, as I said, from the confidence that can only come to you when you have such a long experience. When you're new, you don't have that, and it's got nothing to do with how well you read a tarot. In my case, for example, I have been reading tarot for almost 35 years. I'm almost ashamed of saying that because it does tell a lot about my age. But I believe that whenever a camera is rolling, you kind of revert back to the way you felt when it was the really first times. And I mean butterflies in your stomach, I mean anxiety, pretty much what we can call stage fright. And this is 10 times more when you're filming, when you know that you're not just filming for yourself, or in my case I read tarot for clients, so in many cases I upload my videos in a private mode for the client to watch. And I don't feel that anymore because I know that these videos are only going to be watched by myself and another person. And I thought that it would have been the same, and that would have given me a bit of confidence when uploading videos for the tarot community, but it's not the case. I can assure you that it is very emotional. It's a very scary kind of process. So I know that there's a lot of people out there that want to start their own channel, but they're really worried about what the community is going to say about their content, how they're going to be judged. Well, I can tell you this, as a new presence in YouTube, in TarotTube in specific, I can tell you that yes, it is very scary. And sometimes you will be facing negative comments and feedbacks. But I think that in my case in specific, what I want to do in my videos, in my channel, is to propose this approach to tarot as a way to improve my life, as a way to process grief and trauma and any other human emotions. And that's why I really like it whenever I upload a video that deals with tarot in the times of trauma, for example, or grief or uncertainty. I really enjoy it whenever I receive a positive feedback from someone saying your words really resonated with me. And to me, That is the main reason why I'm doing this. If I can reach out to someone, if what I'm putting out there as my content, which is reflecting me as a person, if that can resonate with even just one person, that would have made it worth it. So this is my advice to anyone who's out there and they want to just start your channel. If you have something new to propose to the community, to give out there, then by all means, just get over your fears, get over your anxiety and your performance anxiety, especially when you're doing a VR, because with the tag, you're obviously exposed to a larger audience. Just do it, and I can assure you that yes, it's going to be scary, but there's going to be a lot of really good feelings as a reward. The first tarot deck that I'm going to try and pair with the Soul Trees Ascension Oracle deck is the Ventrue deck, which is a tarot deck by Leah Pantea. Now, if you're not familiar with this deck, I actually did a bit of research. This is, by the way, the first edition. Unfortunately, this edition is out of print, but there is availability on the second edition, and which I don't have, but I believe that the second edition is borderless. I will put the link in the description box below just in case you want to get a copy. This deck is really unique in my collection in the sense that once I did the research, I kind of started understanding the way this deck works. It's a tarot deck. As you can see, it's a Pippish deck. What's beautiful about it and what resonates certainly with me is the story behind the creation of this deck. So basically, the artist went to Iceland, which is, by the way, one of my favorite countries in the world, and she spent quite some time there, and she created this deck thanks to the inspiration taken from the ruggedness of the landscape of this country. So if you haven't been to Iceland, it's a wonderful, wonderful place. It's a completely different kind of landscape, whether you go in summer or in winter, and the fact that there's a lot of the association fire and ice for the Icelandic landscape is completely true. 1000% Iceland is the country of volcanoes, and they are active. As a matter of fact, well, I was there, it was December in 2019, and I remember that on the flight back, I almost didn't make it back because they closed the airport 1 hour after I left because of an eruption, and there was a lot of smoke in the air. Therefore, obviously, planes could not fly. It wasn't exactly safe. This deck, as you can notice, is quite minimalist. I love the fact that there's the use of white spaces in the minors and in the majors as well. Quite particularly in this one, for example, is the Knight of Swords. As you can see, it only shows the leg of a person, assuming it's the knight, that is living at the scene. And I like the fact that this is evocative for me. It's a deck that I actually use quite as an intuitive deck, because it gives you that opportunity. Whenever I pair it with the Ascension Oracle, the Soul Trees Ascension Oracle, I really like the way the two decks play together with the color, reminding there's a lot of resonances, echoes between the colors, the blues and the yellows. In this case, for example, you can see it really well. I like the fact that the Ascension, so the Soul Trees Ascension deck has very evocative keywords. I've said that many times so far that I always prefer to have keywords in my oracle decks. I'm happy with titles, but if it's just titles, it's a bit of a deal breaker for me, because even though an image like this one, for example, if we just look at it and we just cover the keywords, I can work my intuition on it for sure. But whenever I use it this way, so I put the oracle in the middle and two tarot decks on the sides, The oracle, to me, it gives me a lot more opportunity to elaborate on the message that the tarot cards give me when there is a keyword. Having the keyword the unknown between the Nine of Swords and the Ace of Pentacles in this case definitely gives me the opportunity to elaborate. So we might be scared and anxious about this unknown that is presented in front of us, and it's an unknown that always plays a huge part in whenever we wake up with worries at 3 a.m. Especially when we embark upon a new project. Perhaps is a new career opportunity, perhaps is a new investment, perhaps it's this kind of project that we've been thinking about a lot in the past, and we don't have the necessary information that we need, but it's something that may result in an improvement in our lives. See the way in which I prefer to have a keyword in the oracle. Whenever I pair an oracle deck with a tarot deck, I use different layouts. Sometimes I use just, one oracle card and one tarot card. Whenever I do use a combination of tarot and oracle, it needs to resonate for me. It needs to tell me something new. It needs to give me possibly a different kind of perspective from the two tarot cards alone or the one tarot card alone. So, for example, we've got an ending. You reach rock bottom with the Ten of Swords, but that brings out a breakthrough. Now, the breakthrough in my case, it reinforces my way of reading the Suit of Swords. Now, the Suit of Swords is the suit of the mind, and reading number 10 as a numerological, in its numerological meaning, you can see the completion of something in the suit of the mind. And it definitely can be the ending that birth a new breakthrough. So you're breaking out or breaking through all the anxiety that has built up in the Suit of Swords, the uncertainty of the unknown. And you're going away with the Eight of Cups. You've decided, you have a look at the situation, you decided that this is not what works for you, and therefore you decide to leave. And you're leaving something that is broken behind. So it is a breakthrough for you, because you're going towards something better. See how these two actually pair really well together. Sometimes they don't share the same color palette. Sometimes they do. It depends on the card. The colors on the Soul Trees Ascension deck are very vibrant. I really like it for that. But because of that, in some cases, we might feel like we have to use a tarot deck of equivalent vibrancy. I don't always find that it is the case. So aesthetics are definitely very important when pairing an oracle deck and a tarot deck, but it's not just that. Mainly what I focus on is the vibe that I feel, that a deck is giving me. And I think that these two share the same type of vibe, and I have done some pretty good readings with these two together. We've got Holding Back Between the Sun and the Moon. Now, I really like the idea of finding echoes between not just the tarot cards, but the oracle cards. And the last one, we've got Self-Care between the Ace of Cup and the Two of Cup. Now, this was the Soul Trees Ascension deck paired with the Ventrue deck, first edition. And the next deck that I'm going to pair with the Soul Trees Oracle is the Siddhartha Tarot, and this tarot deck is quite recently. It's by Bruno Letizia, and it's been published by Lo Scarabeo. I acquired this deck because 2023 is for me the year of the star. And I saw this deck and I looked at it and I saw that the major arcana of the star is the figure of Machik Labdrön. Machik Labdrön, she used to be a Tibetan woman, and she was really ahead of her time. She traveled a lot, and wherever she went, she just brought the principle of compassion, but also she was the one that founded the doctrine of Chöd in Buddhism. Now, Chöd deals with the way in which you face your demons. There is a recent doctrine that says that demons is to be seen as a modern neurosis, and being as interested as I am in neurology and neuroscience, I thought that it was a very interesting concept to compare the demons of the Tibetan origin and Tibetan culture to modern day neurosis. It is true that the Chöd says that if you fight your demons, you're actually just going to nurture them. You're not going to get rid of them. They're only going to get bigger. There is some truth to that when we look at it as compared to what we think of neurosis. So Chöd actually says or inspires people to just face your demon but accept them. And once you get to accept them, you can actually live with them. I really like this way of looking at this concept. And this tarot deck pretty much goes through the life of Siddhartha. I really like the fact that it pairs really well with the Soul Trees Ascension deck, in the sense that we've got a very similar color palette. The colors do remind one of the other. There's also a lot of keywords that resonate when we look at the figures in the tarot deck. Contrary to the majority of Los Scarabeo decks, the Siddhartha Tarot has a very good guidebook, which I pretty much recommend. It looks and it explains the concept of the choices of the cards, for example, not just necessarily the traditional RWS meaning of this particular cards, but it actually gives a bit of an idea of what's in the specific card. Now, when I use it paired with this Oracle deck, what I let myself do is I let myself be transported by the really good vibes of these two decks together. So in this case, for example, we've got Ungrounded between the Seven of Wands and the King of Pentacles. Perhaps the fact that you have been resilient and you've been sticking to your gun and having to fight against everyone else in the Seven of Wands has made you feel a bit ungrounded. I know from experience that even when I do know that I'm actually fighting for something rightful and just, having to constantly fight can be depleting. And the only way to ground yourself is to meditate, for example. This figure of the King of Pentacles is one of my favorite ones, is the Medicine Buddha, which is actually touching the ground. And the reason why he's touching the ground is because he is calling upon all of the beings in the creation to be witness, to bear witness to him, as to he being the Buddha. There is this echo between the ungrounded keyword message of the Oracle and the being grounded, quite literally, because this is the pose of meditation depicted in the card from the tarot deck. So this kind of pairing has a lot of surprises. Whenever I use it, I'm kind of really constantly in awe of how well these two decks talk to each other. And as I was saying before, it's not just a matter of aesthetics. Aesthetics certainly play a good role or a big role whenever I first choose I want to select a deck to try and see whether they pair well with a specific oracle or not. But I never stopped there, because I wish I could do an episode on misses, like hits and misses. So when, for example, aesthetics really pair well, but the vibes of the two decks are completely different, that could be an interesting one to show you just how important, yes, aesthetic is, but it's definitely not the only thing you need to look at. So just another one, for example, emotions between the Two of Pentacles and the Eight of Wands. That this was a pairing between the Soul Trees, again, Ascension deck, and the Siddhartha Tarot. The next deck I'm going to pair with the Soul Trees Oracle is the Shadowscapes Tarot. Now you will notice that this is a Czech edition. The reason why I've got the Czech edition of this tarot is because the cards are slightly larger, which means that you can definitely see the artwork, the gorgeous artwork, a little bit better. I also have the English edition for the guidebook because I really like reading guidebooks for any deck. Now, this is a clear example in which I picked this tarot, so the Shadowscapes Tarot, because well, initially it was just a choice dependent on aesthetics. So these two decks share a very similar color scheme. They also share, not particularly in this case, but whenever, there you go, whenever you can see the branches of the trees depicted in the Oracle, they do have an echo in the branches depicted in the tarot deck as well. There is this kind of sinewy kind of brush stroke, and you know, when you combine that with the aesthetics brought on by the color scheme, it looks like it's a match made in heaven. I was kind of worried because I didn't know whether these two decks share the same vibes, but I have been using them a couple of times together, and I'm kind of happy of how they read together. The Shadowscapes is one of my most beautiful decks. There is lately, I was talking to a few of my friends in the tarot community, and there's this concept that goes around saying that only independently published tarot decks or oracle decks are, you know, considered. Whenever a deck is mass market, because of the term, because of the words mass market, perhaps people tend to pay less attention. I don't believe that. I think that a deck is a beautiful deck, whether it's mass market or indie. And don't forget that there's a lot of mass market decks that actually started out as an indie deck. And because they had such a huge success in the tarot community, then they were picked up by a mass market publisher. And it's not like they lose in beauty whenever they are printed for, well, a larger audience. So when it comes to pairing, as I said, aesthetics is definitely a 10 between these two decks. When it comes to the vibes of these two decks, I can definitely feel like there's a really excellent conversation going on. For example, in this case, we've got come together between the devil and justice, the justice card. Sometimes I have to, thankfully there's the numbers of the majors because I don't speak Czech, so obviously I have to look at the cards, and there's so much details in this deck that sometimes it takes me a moment to just realize what card that is. So as you can see, there's a lot that resonates between these two. So the last one, value between the Three of Pentacles and the Queen of Pentacles. So this is the Soul Trees Ascension deck paired up with the Shadowscapes Tarot in the Czech edition. And the next pairing is with the Star Seeker Tarot. Now this is another example in which aesthetics definitely came first whenever I was selecting the decks to pair up with this oracle. The color scheme again is very similar, even more so than the Shadowscape, I find. The Star Seeker Tarot is one of my favorite in my collection. It's a very gentle deck. It is that kind of gentle deck though that doesn't hide necessarily the truth. Whenever you need to hear it, it does deliver the message. However, it does so in such a way that it doesn't necessarily hurt. I wouldn't call it though a hug deck. Like the gentle tarot could be a hug deck, for example. It's still a sharpshooter. It does follow the RWS system, however, and it does have let's say, illustrated minors. However, they it's not all of the cards, let's say, are depicted in exactly the same way, so it's not a clone of the RWS. For example, here we've got confusion between the Nine of Pentacles and the Seven of Swords. Perhaps the abundance you have reached is not exactly something you should be proud of, and you feel that you had to do something you were not happy about, but you forced yourself to do it. Perhaps you justified your actions with necessity, but you kind of forgot a part of yourself, and that part of yourself is now creating confusion. Guide between the Womb and the Tower. The Womb is an additional arcana that I find in the Starseeker Tarot. We got a breakthrough between the Chariot and the Priestess. Perhaps your intuition this time has given you a different perspective in the journey you've been embarking upon, and that has brought on a breakthrough. We've got the Unknown between the Four of Wands and the Knight of Swords. Reflection between the Two of Cups and the Three of Wands. Think about the way you see your relationship and start building something together. As you can see, elaborating on the meaning of the tarot cards thanks to the very good keywords that are in the Oracle deck is it's made easy. It's a way in which, for example, I wrap up a reading. Sometimes I give readings to my client in which I use by request maybe a Celtic cross or another spread, another layout. But some specific spreads do not necessarily give you a send-off message. So what I like to do is to do a quick pull this way, a quick pairing between an oracle and a tarot, and just give you know, a quick send-off message based on this. So I would definitely focus on the keywords present in the oracle, wait patiently, and trust. So this Page of Cups need to, this to me is a person that wants to have this evolution, this kind of journey they want to embark upon in their consciousness, for example, because we're looking at the Suit of Cups. So it's the inward kind of feelings. And it's the progression of someone that goes from being initiated to being mastering their consciousness and their feelings. But in order to do that, you have to wait patiently and trust that the process will work, will bring out some results. Momentum between the Fool and the King of Cups. There's a lot that you can elaborate on whenever you trust your feelings, whenever you trust your intuition. And I believe that this way of reading cards, tarot and oracle, is, first of all, it's an excellent exercise for those of you who don't feel confident enough to do readings, because it does give you an easier way to give the right interpretation to the tarot cards. But it's also a way to create and establish a meaningful connection between yourself, the person you're reading for, and the reading itself. So I'm a big fan of using oracle decks this way. So the last one is beliefs and expectations between the Ace of Wands and the Three of Pentacles. So this was the Starseeker Tarot. And the next deck that I'm going to pair with the Soul Trees Ascension deck is the Tarot of the Strange Sprouts. I only have the bag. I do have the box as well from this tarot, but the bag is so beautiful that I keep it in the bag instead. Now this is a French deck, and the original title is Tarot aux Ramures Étranges. And there's been a bit of a confusion, I believe, because everyone calls it the strange antlers. And Ramure can be translated as antlers as well, but while looking at the deck, I was kind of confused because I was thinking, I see a lot of branches here, but I don't see a lot of antlers. As a matter of fact, I don't see any antlers at all. So I actually reached out to the creator and they confirmed that it's meant to be branches or sprouts. Sprouts is actually even better. I really love pairing these two up because, well, first of all, the color palette has got a lot of echoes between the two decks. But as you can see, because we're talking about branches or sprouts in the tarot deck, what better to pair it with than an oracle deck, which is actually centered and focused on branches of trees in this case. This is another example in which aesthetics come first, but then while using the two decks together, you can actually find a lot of an actual communication between the two. Now, the Tarot of the Strange Sprouts have been requested to do a walkthrough, which I will be happy to give. I feel that it's a tarot deck that you can fairly easily use when you know the RWS system. However, the guidebook for this tarot is very interesting. And I know that I always say it's easy to translate because we all have Google Lens, Google Translate, and we can get a translation, but sometimes it's just not very accurate, I find. And so I'll be happy to give a walkthrough and you know, and just talk about this deck. Particularly because if you do have the Soul Trees Ascension deck, I think that these two are just perfect together. So we got willingness between the Devil and the Eight of Pentacles. Authenticity between the Two of Swords and the Hanged Man, the Hanged One. I really like the fact that it looks like it's a kind of an exaltation of, you know, you're stuck in this moment, you're blindfolded and you're stuck in this choice, you can't move. You feel like you're paralyzed by the anxiety and the fear provoked by the fact that you have to take an important decision. But the fact that we've got in this case the Hanged One, which is the card of actually changing perspective. So looking at things, looking at the facts, or looking at your decision, the ones that you have in front of you, from a different perspective. And the Oracle deck in this case is telling you to be yourself, to be your true self. So it promotes your own authenticity, and perhaps by doing that, by focuses on what your true self wants, then you can get unstuck. Overthinking between the Magician and the Two of Cups. Love you between the Ten of Wands and Death. Beliefs and expectations between the Four of Swords and the Two of Pentacles. As you can see, the sprouts coming out of the person's head have different sizes. You know, sometimes you have a chariot, for example, here. They look positive like a treetop to me. So they're rather big. But in other cases, like for example, the Seven of Cups, they are just like sprouts. So I like the idea that you can see some kind of a transformation, or you can see the journey the protagonist of this deck has embarked upon. And whenever you look at how big instead the branches or sprouts are in the Oracle deck, you can kind of see some kind of echoes and resonance. You can also point to some sort of a directionality. For example, here it looks like we have more weight on branches on towards this card. So perhaps it's the indecision of the Seven of Cups, being insecure about what to do next. It comes after the Six of Cups, in which we had to look at a better past, the better days in the past, to get some kind of energy to recharge our batteries. And this card, this Oracle card, is asking us to focus on the empathy and the compassion that we have within ourselves in order to achieve some kind of victory and moving on. discover between the World and the Six of Pentacles. So as you can see, sometimes I start from the Tarot, sometimes I start from the Oracle, sometimes I start from the left, sometimes I start from the right. It doesn't necessarily have a a right or a wrong way to do that, just as long as if it speaks to you. But most of all, if the important thing is that the two decks speak, have a connection with each other. And you need to just sit back and listen to the conversation and join in the conversation. So the last one, we've got adapt between the Fool and the Hierophant. Such a beautiful combination between the Sultry's Oracle and the Tarot of the Strange Sprouts. The next deck that I'm going to pair with this oracle is the Cursed Ogres Tarot deck by Ana Sora. This deck came from Spain. It's a 100% linen cardstock. I have to tell you the truth, when I got it in my hands the first time, I was a bit, it felt a bit odd. The tactile experience with it felt a bit odd. And as I said many times before, to me the tactile experience in judging whether I can bond with a deck or not is actually very important, because I believe that you're the one that has to use the deck, and the cards are in your hands all the time. You're the one that has to shuffle it. You're the one that has to find the deck out and pick the cards. And if there's anything related to the tactile sensation of the deck that pushes me away, I find that is definitely a deal breaker for me. I find that I can have an incredibly beautiful, gorgeous, fantastic deck, but if the tactile experience is not a positive one, I will not feel called by this deck. I will not feel like I want to use it. However, after using this deck for a while, I do find that I did find a way, let's say, to feel at ease when using it. Now, these two are in this deck, just a small disclaimer, has a few, let's call it confronting or strong, let's put it this way, cards. A couple of them. So I've taken them out. I hope I've taken all of them out. The reason why I chose this deck is because I wanted to show you that aesthetics is not everything. So in this case, the Cursed Ogres would not have been my first pick when looking at aesthetics on a tarot to pair with this oracle, because the color palette was pretty much different, I'd say. The artwork is also different, although in this case, for example, it kind of contradicts what I'm saying, because there are branches here that seem to be an echo or resonance to the oracle card, but it's not always the case. That it's pretty much just a coincidence. But these two decks actually pair quite well together. And I'm talking about the kind of vibes. So what I mean is that the keywords in the oracle deck create a kind of an accepting environment to soften and to balance out the harshness that this tarot has. I hope it makes sense. So if I use this tarot on its own, sometimes I feel like it's a bit so, how should I put it, too aggressive, too strong. It comes out as a very strong and direct deck. Whereas if I use it, pairing it up with this oracle deck, even though aesthetically they're not exactly pleasing to the eye, but it does give me that kind of balance. So for example, we've got here adapt between the Wheel of Fortune and the Six of Swords. It tells me that the ups and downs I need to adapt to the ups and downs of life. And in this case, the Six of Swords, which to me represents a kind of a difficult journey you are undertaking right now, because you know that something has broken and you need to leave it behind, and it's very heavy. You leave what's behind with a very heavy heart, and perhaps it wasn't your decision to leave, you had to, but you are going towards something much better. So adapt to the fact that life is made of ups and downs. Do you see what I mean? It kind of softens the blow. I hope it's clear when said this way. So listen between the Knight of Pentacles and the Ten of Wands. And then we've got playfulness between Death and the Ten of Cups. So I don't know if I said that before, this deck is quite pippish in the minors. It does, however, have some very powerful cards. I really like the star cards in this deck, for example. Now these are apples, and so this is an apple core. It's like a section of an apple cut in half, and you know, and the seeds look like a star. I think it's a very clever way to portray a star. So we've got emotions between the Queen of Swords and the star. I believe that here, more than anywhere else, we can see how the Oracle deck is softening or balancing out the tarot cards. In this case, the Queen of Swords can be seen as, well, it's the person that doesn't take any BS. It's the person that sniffs out a lie, you know, a mile away. But it's also the person that, because of acquired resilience in life after probably really tough events to face, they have perhaps put aside their feelings, their emotional, the emotional side to her truthfulness, to their own psyche. And this oracle is telling the Queen of Swords to actually pick that back and to focus on their emotions. So apply that acuteness of the mind to their own, and soften that using their own emotion, focusing on their own emotions in such a way that you can reconnect to the universe. Harmony between the Nine of Wands and the Three of Swords. And just one more, we've got a tension between the King of Swords and the King of Wands. Now, two wands, that's really, I like the fact that, you know, in this case, you have the presence of wood and branches in all three cards. And it's obviously, it's a very nice combination. It's a very nice event when there's so much resonance between the cards. I find that it really gives you the idea to expand the messages that you are receiving. So this pairing was between, as always, the Soul Trees Ascension deck Oracle and the Cursed Ogres Tarot deck. And the last deck that I'm going to show you today is the Fyodor Pavlov Tarot. This is the mass market edition published by US Games. Now, a shout out to US Games for this, for picking up this indie deck. I really adore the production, the value of the production. I mean, look at this guidebook, is hardcover. It's really beautiful. It's excellent quality. Obviously the guidebook reflects the guidebook that was on the indie edition as well, so US Games just literally just put it in a different kind of layout, but they've done, I believe they've done an excellent job. It is a kind of a pricey one, even though it's mass market. I think it's well, I personally paid about 80 Australian dollars, which is a bit pricey for a mass market deck, but I also recognize the quality of the production, as I said. It is a kind of a very soft linen finish. It is gold gilded, is the kind of gilding that hopefully, I'm afraid it's one of those that chips. Hopefully it won't. We'll see. I mean, I had this deck for only a couple of weeks, so I don't know if it does chip or not, but it looks like one of those ones. In any case, this is another example of a pair that is not necessarily aesthetically pleasing. So as you can see, the color palette is completely different. The Fyodor Pavlov has a rather muted color palette, this kind of creamy kind of color, and then the minors have got a thematic color per each suit. So you can see the swords, for example, is the red, the cups is the blue, the pentacles is yellow. However, I still believe that there's a lot that can be found. There's a very good value in this combo. I believe that these two decks form a really deep connection when read together. The energies are very similar, and I really enjoy this type of discoveries whenever I find out by chance that two decks pair well together, even though I wouldn't have thought so. Then it's always a good feeling, isn't it? Now, for example, we got guide between the Four of Wands and the Five of Pentacles. We've got confusion between the Five of Wands and the Chariot. You know, there's always something to elaborate in thanks to these keywords. The confusion that is created between the competition. You know, just look at that and just put an end to this fight, put an end to this competition. Perhaps the best way to solve that kind of conflict is to everyone work in the same, for the same goal, and everyone goes in the same direction. Holding back between the Ace of Cups and the Eight of Pentacles. Self-care between the Queen of Wands and the Two of Swords. The Page of Swords to me is the person that is always asking why. They're always interested in the reason behind things, and the kind of that archetype that of the detective, the one that is always curious about stuff. It is typical of the suit of the mind, which is the suit of swords, to just wanting to go beyond or behind the words, and just there is something that if you combine that with your instinct, there can be a reason why. For example, you're asking for all this kind of information, you're always asking the why of things, and there is this kind of expectation to combat, to fight back on this sense of restlessness, of this sense of not being satisfied with whatever is on offer to you. Perhaps you should ask yourself why and follow your instinct and find out why everything that is around you does not satisfy you anymore. See how in this case I'm also expanding, taking the message coming from the tarot cards on a first, as a first layer, let's say, and then just layering on top thanks to the insight that is given by the Oracle card. So in this case, for example, we got Becoming between the Ace of Wands and the Magician, this fiery energy that is in transformation, that gives you the possibility to use your full extent, the full extent of your skills, for example. Come together between the Nine of Wands and the Two of Cups. That is even better. Your resilience that brought you to almost getting to the end of your goal, but you're still powering through, you're soldiering on. Perhaps, or you should ask for help. You should consider the fact that there's others around you. No man is an island, so come together. Leave back the sense of being on your own, being alone, and accept that you can form a relationship, form a partnership with someone that can share your load. Illumination between the Three of Cups and the Six of Wands. A tension between the Seven of Swords and the Eight of Swords. Now, I do say that these two don't really share the same artwork, and I stick to my guns. However, in some cases, I feel that there's still some aesthetic resonance between the two that can, you know, even help combining the messages. Scarcity between the Ace of Swords and the Seven of Pentacles. And the last one, feel between the Four of Pentacles and the Three of Pentacles. Now, this was the Fyodor Pavlov Tarot, and all these tarot decks have been paired up with the Soul Trees Ascension deck. I really enjoyed these pairings. I hope you did too. If you like my video, please consider subscribing to my channel. So this was my 4th episode of Tarot and Oracle Pairings, but this was also a VR playing with pairs to Don Michel Tarot. Have a great day.